The conference hall stretched across half a kilometer of the Confluence Station, a massive structure that orbited the neutral world of Axiom Prime. Representatives from 43 different species sat in their designated sections, each area modified to suit their particular environmental needs. The Vorathi occupied crystalline chambers filled with methane gas. The aquatic Telson floated in suspended water spheres. The Sindari needed no special accommodation, their telepathic minds comfortable in any atmosphere their bodies could survive. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in the human section, a modest space near the back of the hall. It had been designed for a species considered young and relatively unimportant in galactic affairs. She wore a simple dark suit, her gray hair pulled back in a practical bun. At 73 years old, she had served as Earth's primary representative to the Galactic Confluence for 15 years. She had learned to keep her face calm and her thoughts hidden. The holographic display at the center of the hall showed a horrifying image. A world burned. The planet's surface glowed orange and red as massive ships hung in orbit above it, drawing away its atmosphere like vampires drinking blood. The world had been home to 6 billion Kelthans just 3 days ago. Now it was a dead rock. The Devourers have crossed into Confluence space, announced High Chancellor Vexthar, a Vorathi whose crystalline body pulsed with concerned blue light. This is the third world they have consumed in 2 months. Our intelligence suggests their fleet numbers in the tens of thousands. Murmurs of fear rippled through the assembly. The Devourers were not a species anyone understood. They had appeared from dark space beyond the galactic rim 5 years ago. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply arrived, stripped worlds of all resources, and moved on. Entire civilizations vanished before them. Admiral Thexkar of the Krogan Empire rose to his feet. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his scaled body covered in ceremonial armor that had been worn by Krogan warriors for 10,000 years. The Krogan had been the military backbone of the Confluence for millennia. They took pride in their strength. The Krogan First Fleet will engage these creatures, Thexkar declared, his voice booming across the hall. We have fought and defeated every threat to Confluence peace for 3,000 years. These Devourers will learn to fear us. Chen Wei watched the Admiral carefully. She saw the confidence in his posture, the absolute certainty that Krogan might would prevail. The Krogan maintained a fleet of 3,000 capital ships, each one a fortress bristling with weapons. It was the largest military force any single species had ever assembled, or so everyone believed. What of the smaller species? Asked a Sindari matriarch, her voice echoing directly in everyone's mind. The Kelthans had no military fleet. The Devourers targeted them first. Will the weak simply be sacrificed? All Confluence members will be protected, Vexthar assured her. However, we must be realistic. Species with limited military capacity should prepare evacuation protocols. The Krogan cannot be everywhere at once. Chen Wei felt dozens of eyes turn toward the human section. She knew what they were thinking. Humanity had joined the Confluence 200 years ago, young and eager. They had submitted their fleet documentation, as required by law. 47 capital ships, 300 cruisers, perhaps 2,000 support vessels. Enough to patrol human space and contribute to peacekeeping missions, but nothing that would matter in a real war. Ambassador Chen, called Vexthar, does humanity have any contribution to offer? She rose slowly, feeling the weight of attention on her. We will defend our worlds with everything we have. We ask only that the Confluence honor its commitment to mutual defense. Thexkar laughed, a harsh barking sound. The humans can barely protect their own colonies. They will be observers in this war, nothing more. When the Krogan have destroyed these Devourers, perhaps humanity will sing songs of our glory. Chen Wei met his eyes without flinching. Perhaps, she said quietly, and sat back down. The meeting continued for another 3 hours. Defense strategies were discussed. Fleet deployments were planned. The Krogan would lead the military response, supported by Vorathi defensive shields and Sindari intelligence gathering. Smaller species would provide logistical support. Humanity's role was barely mentioned. When the session finally ended, Chen Wei walked alone through the station's corridors. Other ambassadors avoided her, some out of pity, others out of simple disinterest. A species with fewer than 50 capital ships had nothing to offer in a war of this scale. She reached her private quarters and sealed the door. Only then did she allow herself a small smile. She activated her secure communication terminal, one that used quantum encryption technology the Confluence didn't know humanity possessed. "This is Chen Wei. Authorization code Midnight Sun 77 Delta." The screen flickered. The face that appeared belonged to Admiral James Okoro, commander of Earth's Defense Forces. He sat in a command center somewhere deep beneath the African continent, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts and fleet positions. "Ambassador," he said, "we watched the meeting. Thexcar was particularly entertaining." "The Krogan believe they'll save the galaxy," Chen Wei said. "How long do we have?" "Our deep space monitoring network detected Devourer movements 3 days ago. They're not heading for Krogan space or the core worlds. They're coming straight for us. New Sarajevo will be their first target. They'll hit the colony in 72 hours. Chen Wei closed her eyes. New Sarajevo was home to 40 million humans. It was one of humanity's oldest and most developed colonies. It also appeared to be one of humanity's most poorly defended worlds. According to official Confluence records, New Sarajevo had 8 patrol ships and minimal defensive installations. "Are we ready?" she asked. "We've been ready for 200 years, Okoro replied. New Sarajevo's garrison is in position. The fortress is armed and awaiting orders. Captain Rodriguez sends her regards. Tell her to make it convincing. The entire Confluence will be watching. They'll get a show they won't forget." Chen Wei disconnected the call and walked to her window. The stars gleamed against the black of space, countless points of light representing countless worlds. For 2 centuries, humanity had played the role of the weak newcomer. They had reported only a fraction of their military strength. They had built their real forces in secret, hidden inside asteroids and beneath colony surfaces. They had studied the Confluence's history and learned a bitter lesson. Every species that had shown its full strength too early had been conquered or controlled by the elder races. The Krogan dominated through military might. The Vorathi controlled trade through their monopoly on shield technology. The Sindari influenced policy through their telepathic networks. The Confluence was not a federation of equals. It was a hierarchy where the strong commanded and the weak obeyed. Humanity had refused to be weak, but they had learned to appear that way. 3 days from now, that appearance would shatter. Chen Wei looked at her reflection in the window. Behind her calm exterior, she felt the weight of what was coming. Humanity had gambled everything on this moment. If their deception was revealed too soon, the elder races might turn against them. If they revealed their strength too late, the Devourers would destroy them. The timing had to be perfect. She thought of New Sarajevo, of the 40 million people who had no idea what their world truly was. She thought of Captain Rodriguez and the thousands of crew members waiting in the darkness of their hidden fortress. The Devourers were coming. Humanity was ready. The warning sirens began screaming across New Sarajevo at exactly 0600 hours local time. Captain Maria Rodriguez had been awake for 3 hours already, sitting in her command chair deep inside what the rest of the galaxy thought was a moon. "Devourer fleet detected," reported Lieutenant Chen from the sensor station. 500 vessels. They're dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Rodriguez studied the holographic display that filled the center of her bridge. 500 ships appeared as red dots, spreading out in a standard invasion formation. Each ship was massive, some over 2 kilometers long. They bristled with weapons and resource extraction equipment. "Communications," she ordered. "Send standard evacuation alerts to the civilian population. Make it look panicked." "Yes, Captain." The communications officer began broadcasting frantic messages about the incoming threat. Across New Sarajevo, people would be seeing emergency alerts telling them to reach evacuation shelters. Most of them didn't know those shelters were actually heavily armored bunkers, built to survive anything short of planetary destruction. "Tactical, deploy the patrol ships. I want them visible and vulnerable." 8 small patrol ships launched from New Sarajevo's orbital platforms. They were genuine patrol vessels, nothing hidden about them. They moved to intercept the Devourer fleet. 8 tiny ships against 500 massive warships. To any observer, it looked like suicide. On the Confluence observation station 3 light hours away, Ambassador Chen Wei watched the same display. She stood in the monitoring center alongside representatives from a dozen other species, all of them watching humanity's apparent doom. "They should retreat," said a Telson diplomat, his aquatic body rippling with distress. "8 ships cannot stop this." "Humans are stubborn," Thexkar rumbled. The Krogan admiral had come to observe personally. "They will die bravely but pointlessly. The Krogan fleet is still 6 days away. By the time we arrive, New Sarajevo will be ash." Chen Wei said nothing. She simply watched. The Devourer fleet crossed into orbit around New Sarajevo. Their formation was precise and efficient. They had done this thousands of times before. Some ships moved to secure orbital positions. Others prepared landing craft to descend to the surface. A few hung back, ready to harvest the planet's atmosphere once all resistance was eliminated. The 8 human patrol ships opened fire. Their weapons were standard Confluence-grade plasma cannons, nothing special. The shots splashed harmlessly against Devourer shields. Then something changed. Rodriguez watched her tactical display as the enemy fleet settled into their positions. "Wait for it," she murmured. The Devourers launched their landing craft. Hundreds of smaller vessels began descending toward New Sarajevo's atmosphere. They expected to meet light resistance from surface forces, then begin the harvest. "Now," Rodriguez said quietly. Around New Sarajevo, 16 orbital stations that appeared to be simple civilian trade platforms began to rotate. Their outer shells split open like flowers blooming. Beneath the civilian disguises, each station was a weapons platform mounting artillery that would make a Krogan battleship jealous. The platforms opened fire simultaneously. 16 stations, each with 40 heavy cannons. 640 beams of concentrated energy lanced out into space. The Devourer landing craft exploded by the dozens. In 10 seconds, over 100 enemy vessels were reduced to debris. On the observation station, the watching diplomats gasped. Thexkar leaned forward, his eyes widening. "Those stations, the humans never reported those weapons." Chen Wei allowed herself the smallest smile. The Devourer fleet reacted quickly. They were efficient killers. Their capital ships turned their attention to the orbital platforms and opened fire. Massive energy beams struck the stations. 3 were destroyed in the first salvo. 5 more went silent in the second. But they had bought time. Rodriguez stood up from her command chair. "Open hangar bays 1 through 40. Launch all fighters. Bring main weapons online. And somebody please turn off that damn moon hologram. I'm tired of pretending." "Yes, Captain." New Sarajevo's moon had been designated NSM-1 in Confluence records. It was listed as a barren, airless rock with some mining operations on its surface. Ships passed it all the time without a second glance. Now its surface began to split open. Massive doors that had been disguised as natural rock formations slid apart. The moon's entire northern hemisphere opened up like a mechanical flower. Underneath was not rock and dust, but metal and weapons and thousands of personnel who had been waiting in silence. The HDSF Unconquered rose from its hidden hangar. The dreadnought was 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that technically violated 6 different Confluence treaties. Behind it, 39 more capital ships emerged from concealed bays scattered across the moon's surface. Cruisers and destroyers followed by the hundreds, pouring out of the hidden fortress like angry bees from a disturbed hive. Rodriguez looked at the main view screen as her ship cleared the hangar. The Devourer fleet hung in space before her, their ships already reorienting to face this new threat. She could imagine their confusion. The intelligence they had gathered showed New Sarajevo as a lightly defended colony. Now they faced a hidden fortress and 40 capital ships. "All vessels, this is Rodriguez. Engage at will. Show them what happens when they come to human space." The Battle of New Sarajevo lasted 47 minutes. The human ships fought with a ferocity that shocked the Confluence observers. They didn't try to drive the Devourers away. They didn't attempt to negotiate or establish communication. They simply destroyed everything in their path. The Unconquered's main cannon could punch through a Devourer capital ship's shields in 2 shots. Her point defense system swatted enemy fighters from space like insects. Her armor absorbed hits that should have crippled her and kept fighting. The other human ships were equally relentless. They flew in coordinated formations, covering each other's weak points and concentrating fire on one target at a time. When a human ship was damaged, two others would move to shield it while it fell back for repairs. The Devourers had numbers, but the humans had preparation. Every weapon system had been tested thousands of times. Every tactical doctrine had been refined through endless simulations. Every crew member knew exactly what to do. Rodriguez watched as a Devourer battleship tried to ram her ship, a desperate final attack as its systems failed. She calmly ordered evasive maneuvers. The Unconquered rolled aside with surprising grace for such a massive vessel, then put 3 shots into the battleship's reactor core. It exploded in a brilliant flash. Enemy fleet at 20% strength, reported Lieutenant Chen. They're breaking formation. Don't let them escape, Rodriguez ordered. Hunt down every single ship. I don't want survivors reporting back to their main fleet. The human fighters pursued the fleeing Devourers, their weapon systems far more advanced than anything the Confluence had seen from humanity before. Ship after ship went silent, their reactors overloading or their hulls breached. On the observation station, absolute silence filled the monitoring center. The diplomats watched as humanity's hidden military force systematically destroyed an invasion fleet that should have overwhelmed them. Thexkar stared at the display, his face unreadable. How many ships does humanity actually have? He asked quietly. Chenwei turned to face him. Enough, she said simply. The last Devourer ship exploded at 6:47 hours. The human fleet began search and rescue operations, looking for any surviving enemy crew who might provide intelligence. They found none. The Devourers apparently preferred death to capture. Rodriguez sat back in her command chair and allowed herself a moment of relief. They had won. New Sarajevo was safe, but she knew this was just the beginning. Communications send a message to Confluence High Command. Encrypted on our secure channel. Ready, Captain. Message reads, New Sarajevo defense successful. Devourer fleet destroyed. 0 civilian casualties. Human military losses. 3 orbital platforms, 12 fighters, no capital ships. We are prepared for follow-up attacks. She paused, then added, and someone please inform the Confluence that this was one colony. We have 88 more. The message was sent. Across the galaxy, humanity's secret was revealed. They were not weak. They had never been weak. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to show the universe what they truly were. The Galactic Confluence High Council chamber had never been so full. Every species with voting rights had sent representatives. Even those who rarely attended, who usually sent proxies or simply abstained from galactic politics, had come in person. They all wanted to hear humanity's explanation. Ambassador Chen Wei walked through the center aisle, feeling thousands of eyes upon her. Some looked at her with fear, others with anger, a few with something that might have been respect. She reached the central platform and stood before the assembled council, her hands folded calmly behind her back. High Chancellor Vexthar's crystalline form pulsed with agitated red light. Ambassador Chen, this council demands an explanation. Humanity reported a fleet of 47 capital ships. Our observers witnessed 40 capital ships emerge from a single colony's moon. How do you explain this discrepancy? With pleasure, Chancellor, Chen Wei replied. Her voice was calm and steady. The answer is simple. We lied. Shocked murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several delegates rose from their seats in outrage. Thexkar's roar cut through the noise like a blade. You admit to violating Confluence law? The Krogan admiral's face twisted with fury. Military fleet reporting is mandatory. Every species must submit accurate documentation. Every species does submit accurate documentation, Chen Wei said. Except us. We chose not to. This is outrageous, shouted a Vorathi trade minister. The penalties for such deception are severe. Humanity will be sanctioned, possibly expelled from the Confluence. Chen Wei waited for the noise to die down. When she spoke again, her voice carried to every corner of the vast chamber. Before we joined the Confluence, we studied your history, all of it. We read about the Kelmar Collective, who showed their advanced weapons technology and were immediately conquered by the Krogan Empire. We learned about the Thendril people, whose powerful fleet made them a threat. So the Vorathi and Sindari worked together to economically strangle them into submission. We discovered records of a dozen species who were strong, who were capable, who were honest about their abilities. Every single one was either controlled, conquered, or forced into vassal status by the elder races. She paused. letting her words sink in. We learned that in the confluence, showing strength makes you a target. So we chose to appear weak. We reported a fraction of our military capabilities. We built our real forces in secret. We prepared for the day when someone would come for us, and we made sure we would be ready to defend ourselves. A Sindari matriarch's telepathic voice echoed in everyone's mind. You deceived the entire confluence for 200 years? Yes, Chen Wei said simply. Every merchant convoy was a military logistics drill. Every mining operation was actually shipyard construction. Every civilian station in our space was a hidden fortress. We knew a threat like the Devourers would eventually come. We just didn't know when. Vexthar leaned forward. How many ships does humanity actually possess, Ambassador? Chen Wei took a breath. This was the moment that would change everything. Our current fleet consists of 12,847 capital ships, 89,000 cruisers and destroyers, approximately 2 million support vessels. We also maintain 67 mobile fortresses, each one comparable in size to this station. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the background hum of the station's life support system seemed to pause. Thexkar was the first to react. The Krogan admiral stood up, his chair clattering behind him. Impossible. No species has ever maintained a fleet that large. The resources required, the personnel, the infrastructure. We are a species of 8 trillion individuals spread across 90 colonies and 12 habitable worlds, Chen Wei interrupted. We have been building this fleet for 2 centuries with the focused dedication of an entire civilization. Every human knows that our survival depends on our military strength. Every colony contributes. Every world builds ships. It is possible, Admiral, because we made it our priority. A small delegate from the Telson Collective spoke up, their voice trembling. You have 4 times as many capital ships as the Krogan Empire. You could conquer half the confluence if you wished. We don't wish to, Chen Wei said firmly. We built this fleet for one purpose, to ensure that humanity is never conquered. Not by the Devourers, not by any external threat, and not by the elder races of the confluence. The last part hung in the air like an accusation. Several elder race delegates shifted uncomfortably. A Varathi senator spoke, his crystalline voice cold. You built this fleet in secret because you don't trust us. Correct, Chen Wei agreed. We don't trust any civilization that maintains a hierarchy where some species are considered more important than others. We read your laws. Any species with a fleet larger than 5,000 capital ships requires special monitoring. Why? Because the elder races don't want competition. You want to maintain your control. We maintain order, Vexthar protested. Without hierarchy, there would be chaos. You maintain dominance, Chen Wei countered. There's a difference. But that's not why we're here today. We're here because the Devourers are coming, and they don't care about your hierarchy. They'll consume Krogan worlds just as easily as they consume human colonies. They'll strip mine Varathi crystal cities and Sindari meditation gardens without hesitation. The question isn't whether humanity deceived you. The question is whether we'll help you survive. The Sindari matriarch's telepathic voice was quieter now, almost thoughtful. Will you help us? Chen Wei looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of species. That depends on you. If the confluence wants humanity's help, there must be changes. Real changes? What kind of changes? Vexthar asked carefully. First, the fleet limitation laws are abolished. Every species has the right to build whatever military force they deem necessary for their defense. Second, the Security Council is reformed. No more permanent seats. No more elder race veto power. All members have equal votes. Third, humanity assumes primary responsibility for confluence military defense. We'll coordinate with other species' fleets, but overall strategy will be under human command. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in multiple languages. Thexkar roared so loudly that translator devices struggled to process it. Several smaller species delegates were cheering. Vexthar called for order, his voice amplified through the station systems. What you ask is impossible. You want us to tear down millennia of tradition. I want you to survive, Chen Wei said. The Devourer main fleet is 6 days away from Confluence core worlds. Our long-range sensors detected them yesterday. They have over 50,000 ships, maybe more. The Krogan fleet alone cannot stop them. The combined fleets of all Confluence species cannot stop them. But humanity can. We've been preparing for exactly this scenario. She pulled up a holographic display, showing fleet positions and projected battle outcomes. If you give us command, we can deploy our forces to intercept the Devourers before they reach your homeworlds. We've already positioned mobile fortresses along their projected path. Our fleets are ready to deploy. We can win this war, but only if you're willing to accept that the old order is over. Thexthar stared at the display. His face showed the struggle between pride and pragmatism. Finally, he spoke. The Krogan Empire will fight alongside humanity. Under human command if necessary. Other delegates began to speak. Some agreed immediately. Others wanted time to consult with their governments. A few elder race representatives walked out in protest, refusing to accept the new reality. The Sundari matriarch's telepathic voice cut through the chaos. I propose an emergency vote. All those in favor of accepting humanity's terms and granting them military command authority, signal now. The vote was not unanimous. Several elder race delegates voted against it. Some abstained, but the majority voted yes. They voted yes because they were afraid of the Devourers. They voted yes because humanity had proven their capability at New Sarajevo. They voted yes because, for the first time in millennia, the weak species outvoted the strong. Chen Wei watched the tally appear on the display. The motion passes, Vexthar announced, his voice hollow. Humanity is granted emergency military command authority for the duration of the Devourer crisis. Thank you, Chancellor, Chen Wei said. She turned to address the entire assembly. To all confluent species, humanity did not ask for this responsibility. We would have preferred to remain hidden, protecting our own worlds and letting the galaxy sort out its own problems. But the Devourers forced our hand. Now that we're revealed, we'll do what we do best. We'll fight, and we'll win. She activated her communicator. Admiral Okoro, this is Ambassador Chen. You have authorization to deploy the fleet. Show them what humanity has been building. Acknowledged, Ambassador, came Okoro's reply. Mobilizing now. Across human space, in hidden shipyards and concealed fortresses, humanity's true military might began to move. 12,000 capital ships received their orders. 89,000 cruisers and destroyers fired up their engines. 2 million support craft began coordination protocols. The largest military fleet ever assembled by a single species was going to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The void between stars was supposed to be empty. That's what made it perfect for an ambush. Fleet Admiral James Okoro stood on the bridge of the HDSF Indomitable Will, his flagship and the largest vessel humanity had ever constructed. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of humanity's assembled fleet. 12,847 capital ships, 89,000 support vessels, 67 mobile fortresses so massive they had their own gravitational fields, and the Devourers had no idea they were there. Status report, Okoro ordered. Commander Park, his tactical officer, studied her displays. All fleet elements in position, Admiral. Cloak fields operating at maximum efficiency. The dark star fortresses are mimicking distant star systems perfectly. Long-range sensors show the Devourer fleet maintaining course. They'll reach this position in 47 minutes. Okoro nodded. The dark star fortresses were humanity's greatest secret weapon. Each one was a mobile station the size of a small moon, equipped with cloaking technology that made it appear as a distant star. The Devourer's scouts had passed through this region days ago and reported nothing unusual. They had no idea they were flying straight into the largest military trap in galactic history. Signal from Confluence forces, reported the communications officer. Admiral Thexkar requests permission to take his fleet to the front line. Okoro considered. The Krogan had contributed their entire military to this battle. 3,000 capital ships positioned on humanity's flanks. It was a significant force, and Thexkar was a capable commander despite his pride. Denied, Okoro said. Krogan forces will hold position as assigned. This is a coordinated operation. Everyone follows the plan. He could imagine Thexkar's frustration, but the Krogan admiral didn't argue. He had agreed to human command, and to his credit, he was honoring that agreement. Okoro walked to the view screen that dominated one wall of the bridge. Space looked empty in every direction, just stars and darkness. But he knew the truth. Hidden throughout this region were thousands of ships, all waiting in perfect silence. Admiral, the Devourer fleet is dropping out of faster-than-light travel, Park announced. Distance 200,000 kilometers. Sensors reading 52,000 vessels. They're larger than expected. 52,000. Okoro felt his stomach tighten. Their intelligence had estimated 50,000, maybe less. Every additional ship meant more human casualties, more lives lost. Maintain cloak, he ordered. Wait for them to commit. The Devourer fleet emerged from their faster-than-light jump in a massive formation. Their ships spread across thousands of kilometers of space, a swarm of metal and death moving toward Confluence territory. They maintained their course, confident and unchallenged. They're passing the outer perimeter now, Park said. Still no indication they've detected us. Wait, Okoro murmured. The Devourer fleet continued forward, their sensors scanning ahead for any threats. They found nothing. Space appeared empty. The forward elements of their fleet passed between two regions of space that appeared to contain distant star clusters. The Devourer's navigation systems logged the stars and moved on. They're committed, Park said. 60% of their fleet is within the kill zone. Now, Okoro said quietly. Commander Park's fingers danced across her controls. All units, this is Fleet Command. Execute protocol reveal. All ships decloak and engage. The stars went dark, not metaphorically. Literal stars, hundreds of them that the Devourers had been using for navigation, simply vanished. The Dark Star fortresses deactivated their cloaking fields, revealing themselves as the massive military installations they truly were. At the same moment, 12,000 human capital ships appeared from nowhere. They had been there all along, hidden by cloaking technology that the Confluence didn't know humanity possessed. Now they dropped their cloaks simultaneously, appearing in a perfect sphere around the Devourer fleet. Okoro watched the enemy formation on his displays. For 5 seconds, the Devourers didn't react. They were probably trying to understand what had just happened, how an empty region of space had suddenly become filled with the largest military fleet they had ever encountered. Then the battle began. All ships, Okoro said calmly into his command channel. Open fire! The human fleet attacked as one. 12,000 capital ships fired their main weapons simultaneously. The combined firepower was staggering. Energy beams and projectile weapons filled the void. The Devourer fleet's shields lit up as they absorbed the first wave. Many shields didn't hold. Hundreds of Devourer ships exploded in the opening salvo. Their formation broke apart as ships tried to scatter and regroup, but there was nowhere to go. Humanity had positioned their forces in a complete sphere. Every direction the Devourers turned, they faced human guns. Dark Star fortresses, open fire, Okoro ordered. The massive mobile platforms unleashed their main weapons. Each fortress mounted artillery that dwarfed anything on a capital ship. Their shots could punch through multiple targets. One beam from a Dark Star fortress destroyed 6 Devourer vessels that had made the mistake of flying in a line. The Devourers recovered from their shock and began fighting back. Their ships were deadly, equipped with weapons that could strip a planet's atmosphere. Now they turned those weapons on human vessels. Taking fire across all sectors, Park reported, fleet-wide shields holding. We have hull breaches on 70 ships. Destroyer Squadron 12 is reporting heavy damage. Deploy repair drones, Okoro ordered. Damaged ships fall back to secondary positions. Fresh vessels move up to replace them. The human fleet fought with a discipline born from endless training. When one ship was damaged, 2 others would move to shield it while it retreated for repairs. Fighter squadrons darted through the chaos, targeting Devourer weapons systems. Capital ships concentrated their fire, overwhelming enemy shields through focused attacks. But the Devourers were not helpless prey. They were experienced killers who had consumed galaxies. They adapted quickly, forming defensive clusters and targeting human ships with coordinated strikes. We've lost 43 capital ships, Park said, her voice tight. 212 cruisers destroyed. Fighter losses at 18%. Okoro watched the casualty reports climb. Each number represented hundreds or thousands of lives, sailors and soldiers who had volunteered to defend humanity. He felt the weight of every death, but he couldn't let emotion interfere with command. Continue the attack. Implement Protocol Thermopylae. Park hesitated. Admiral, that protocol accepts heavy casualties in exchange for... I know what it accepts, Commander. We hold this position. We don't retreat. We don't withdraw. We destroy every single Devourer ship, no matter the cost. If we let them escape to warn their main forces, they'll know our capabilities. This has to be a complete victory. Yes, sir. Protocol Thermopylae was humanity's doctrine of acceptable losses. It was brutal and pragmatic. When the survival of civilization was at stake, individual losses became acceptable. Okoro hated it, but he understood its necessity. The battle raged for 3 hours, space filled with debris and radiation. Human ships pressed forward relentlessly, taking casualties but never breaking. The Krogan fleet joined the attack, their warriors proving their worth alongside human forces. Enemy fleet at 40% strength, Park reported. They're trying to break out towards Sector 7. Close the gap, Okoro ordered. Don't let any ships escape. Deploy the reserve fleet. 3,000 capital ships that had been held back now jumped into the battle, cutting off the Devourer's escape route. The enemy fleet was completely surrounded, trapped in a sphere of human guns. The Devourers fought with desperate fury. Their ships rammed human vessels when their weapons failed. Some tried to self-destruct, hoping to take human ships with them. But humanity's forces were relentless. Enemy fleet at 10% strength, Park said. They're breaking formation. Individual ships attempting to scatter. Hunt them down, Okoro said coldly. Every single one. Human fighters pursued the fleeing Devourers across thousands of kilometers. Ship by ship, the enemy fleet was destroyed. Their hulls were breached. Their reactors overloaded. Their crews died in the cold vacuum of space. Finally, after 4 hours and 17 minutes of continuous battle, Commander Park looked up from her display. Admiral, all enemy contacts destroyed. The Devourer fleet is eliminated. Okoro closed his eyes briefly. Casualty report. 2,147 capital ships lost. 7,300 cruisers destroyed. Fighter losses at 42%. Total casualties estimated at 1.3 million personnel. 1.3 million dead. More than humanity had lost in any previous war in their history. More than had died in the colonization of space. More than had perished in Earth's worst conflicts. But 52,000 Devourer ships were destroyed. An entire invasion fleet eliminated. Damage assessment? Okoro asked. 40% of our surviving ships need repairs. Darkstar fortresses suffered only minor damage. The Krogan fleet lost 800 vessels but fought well. Other Confluence forces took minimal casualties due to their reserve positions. Okoro nodded. The Krogan had proven themselves. They had fought alongside humanity without hesitation, and their warriors had died bravely. Send a message to all fleet commanders. Well done. 3 weeks after the battle, Ambassador Chen Wei stood before the Galactic Confluence Assembly for the second time. The chamber looked different now. Many seats were empty. Several elder race delegates had refused to return after humanity's military command had been approved. A few species had withdrawn from the confluence entirely, unwilling to accept the new reality. But most had stayed, and many more were paying attention now. Chen Wei looked out at the assembled delegates. She saw fear in some faces, respect in others. A few looked at her with something close to gratitude. The Kelmar survivors, whose homeworld had been consumed by the Devourers, watched with tears in their eyes. Humanity had saved them from complete extinction. 3 weeks ago, humanity revealed what we truly are, she began. We showed you a military fleet that none of you knew existed. We demonstrated technology that violated treaties we signed. We admitted to 200 years of deception. Many of you are angry about this. Some of you feel betrayed. I understand these feelings. She paused, letting her words settle. But I will not apologize for what we did. Humanity learned a hard lesson long before we reached the stars. We learned it in our own blood, on our own world. The lesson is simple. Trust must be earned, not demanded. And the powerful cannot be trusted to protect the weak unless the weak have the power to protect themselves. A Varathi delegate stood up. You built weapons that could destroy us all. You hid them from the confluence. How can we trust you now? You can't, Chen Wei said bluntly. Not completely. Just as we don't completely trust you. But trust isn't necessary for cooperation. Mutual interest is enough. And right now we all share the same interest. Survival. She activated a holographic display showing the recent battle. The Devourer fleet we destroyed was just their advance force. Our long-range sensors have detected their main forces deeper in dark space. They will come again. Maybe in months, maybe in years. But they will come. And when they do, humanity will be ready. The question is whether the rest of the confluence will be ready alongside us. High Chancellor Vexthar's crystalline form pulsed with a mix of emotions. What are you proposing, Ambassador? A new structure for the confluence, Chen Wei said. not the hierarchy that existed before, where elder races made decisions and younger species followed. A true federation where every species has equal voice and equal protection. Impossible, said a Sindari representative. The elder races have maintained order for millennia. Without our guidance. Without your control, you mean? Chen Wei interrupted. Let me tell you what your guidance looked like from humanity's perspective. We arrived in the galaxy 200 years ago, hopeful and naive. We wanted to join the confluence as equals. Instead, we found a system where military strength was strictly controlled, where economic power was concentrated among a few species, where political decisions were made by those who had always held power. She pulled up historical records. In the past 1,000 years, 17 species tried to expand their fleets beyond the acceptable limits. 9 were economically sanctioned until they complied. 5 were forcibly disarmed by Krogan military action. 3 simply disappeared from confluence records. You called it maintaining order. We called it oppression. Admiral Thexkar stood up slowly. The Krogan looked older than he had 3 weeks ago. The Krogan Empire has been the military shield of the confluence for 3,000 years. We maintained peace. We protected the weak. You also decided who was allowed to be strong, Chen Wei said not unkindly. Admiral, I watched recordings of your warriors in the recent battle. They fought bravely. They died protecting not just Krogan worlds but all confluence species. Your people have honor. But your empire maintained its power by preventing others from matching your strength. That era is over. Thexkar sat down without responding. Around him, other Krogan delegates looked uncertain. Their empire's position in the confluence had been built on military supremacy. Now humanity had shown that supremacy was an illusion. A small delegate from the Telson Collective spoke up, their voice trembling. What you're proposing sounds fair. But humanity now has the largest fleet in the galaxy. Won't you simply become the new elder race? Won't you control us the way the others did? It was a fair question. Chen Wei had expected it. We might, she admitted. Power corrupts. We're human, not perfect. In 50 years or 100, we might become exactly what we fought against. That's why we're proposing something that limits our own power. She pulled up a new document. This is humanity's proposal for the Reformed Confluence Charter. First, the fleet limitation laws are permanently abolished. Every species has the right to build whatever military they need for defense. If the Telson want to build 10,000 ships, they can. If the Vorathi want to match our fleet size, they're welcome to try. Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was radical. Second, military command will rotate among species based on merit and need, not permanent assignment. Humanity will coordinate defense against the Devourers because we have the capability now. But in the future, if another species develops better capability or faces a specific threat, they'll take command. Third, the Security Council is dissolved. All decisions are made by the full assembly with 1 vote per species, regardless of size or power. No vetoes, no permanent seats, true democracy. Fourth, and most importantly, any species that feels oppressed or controlled by the Confederation can leave at any time. No penalties, no sanctions. The door is always open. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates cheered. Others looked shocked. The remaining elder race representatives sat in stunned silence. Bexthar called for order. These proposals would fundamentally change the confluence. The elder races have guided galactic civilization for millennia. You ask us to surrender that role. I ask you to share power, Chen Wei corrected. Or more accurately, I'm informing you that you no longer have a choice. Humanity has the military strength to protect ourselves and our allies. We don't need the confluence's permission. We're offering partnership, but we don't require it. She let that sink in. You can reject these proposals. You can try to expel humanity from the confluence. You can attempt to maintain the old hierarchy, but it won't change reality. We're here. We're powerful, and we will not be controlled. The Sindari matriarch's telepathic voice filled the chamber. And if we accept your proposals? What then? Then we fight together, Chen Wei said simply. Humanity will share our technology. We'll help other species build their own defenses. We'll coordinate our fleets against the Devourers and any other threats. We'll build a confluence where species are judged by their character and contributions, not their age or military strength. It's a beautiful vision, the matriarch said. But visions often fail when confronted with reality. Perhaps, Chen Wei acknowledged. But the alternative is to continue as we were, and we know where that leads. The Devourers would have destroyed the confluence if we hadn't been ready. The next threat might be worse. We need to be stronger together, the vote was called. It took 3 hours of debate. Some elder race delegates walked out rather than vote. Others abstained. But when the final count was tallied, the reformed confluence charter passed by a 2/3 majority. The old order was over. A new one had begun. After the vote, Chen Wei returned to her quarters on the confluence station. She was exhausted. 200 years of secrets revealed in 3 weeks. 2 centuries of preparation, vindicated in 4 hours of battle. Everything had changed. Her communication terminal chimed. Admiral Okoro's face appeared on the screen. "Congratulations, Ambassador. You pulled it off, and we pulled it off," she corrected. "Your fleet won the battle." "I just handled the politics. How do you feel?" Okoro asked. Chen Wei considered the question. "Relieved, worried. We showed the galaxy what we are, Admiral. There's no hiding anymore. Every species knows humanity has 12,000 capital ships. Some will want to be our allies. Others will see us as a threat. And some will try to match our strength." "Good," Okoro said. "Let them try. Competition makes everyone stronger. And if they build massive fleets, maybe they'll be ready the next time the Devourers come." "You think they'll return?" "I know they will. We bloodied them. But we didn't destroy their civilization. They're out there rebuilding, planning. In 5 years, or 10 or 50, they'll try again. Will we be ready?" Okoro smiled grimly. "We're already building the next generation of ships. Larger, faster, more heavily armed. The shipyards haven't stopped. Humanity knows how to do one thing very well, Ambassador. We know how to prepare for the worst." The communication ended. Chen Wei sat alone in her quarters, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Devourers lurked. Somewhere else, other threats existed that humanity hadn't encountered yet. But humanity would be ready. They always were. On Earth, in a military command center deep beneath the African continent, Admiral Okoro reviewed the latest reports. The fleet had taken heavy losses, but repairs were progressing. New ships were already coming online from hidden shipyards. The military-industrial complex that had been built in secret over 2 centuries continued to operate at full capacity. His terminal beeped with a priority message. Long-range sensors had detected unusual signals from the Andromeda galaxy.